And John Bernardi joins us now. Welcome back. It's good to see you again.
Thanks, Tom. It's always a pleasure to be here.
You took part in that roundtable with the Attorney General last week discussing two big issues in particular that the United Way is working to address: the opioid crisis and poverty. The face of poverty really has changed over the past 10, 20, 30 years. We are seeing poverty with a much different look, especially here in the North Country.
Absolutely. The face of poverty has changed a great deal over the decades and over the generations. And what we're seeing is an increasing number of working families that are struggling to make ends meet and are right on the edge of that financial cliff every day. And many of these families are working 2 and 3 jobs and working really hard, yet struggling to make ends meet. They're not eligible for many of the government programs because they make a little bit too much, or they make above the federal poverty limit, which is extraordinarily low. Yet they don't make enough to be at what we call the ALICE threshold, which is a number that allows individuals and families to live independently with some level of comfort and buffer from that financial cliff. And there are tens of thousands of families in our region that are in between that gap of making a little more than the federal poverty limit, but less than the ALICE threshold. They're a flat tire, a leaky roof, or a broken furnace away from potential catastrophe.
And when you say potential catastrophe, they could end up losing their home. They're just not prepared for a major unexpected bill or expense to come along.
Yes, and many of these incidents are things that you and I and others would take for granted as an inconvenience or a challenge, but certainly we could overcome a flat tire or a leaky roof or a broken furnace or a car breaking down. But for many families that are working extraordinarily hard, something like that can create a chain of events which could lead to unemployment, homelessness, any health issues, having to go without medication, any number of other issues. And we're finding that to be increasingly more the case in terms of it affecting working families.
And you talk about the ALICE threshold. ALICE is an acronym: Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed.
Exactly.
And United Way chapters across the country and New York did a survey a few years ago to try to figure out how many families fall into this category. And you found that here in the North Country, the 3 counties, it varies from community to community, but about 40, 45, even 50% of the families fall into this category. Was that surprising that this many people are this close to the so-called financial cliff?
I think it is surprising. When we talk about the report, and we did some extensive research, it's really an extensive project that looks at poverty and views poverty through a very different lens than any lens that we've used before or that anybody's used before. And what we found was better than half of the households in our region, and it varies from town to town, but on average, more than half of the households in our region live below the ALICE threshold, and it was an astonishing number.
These numbers came out a few years ago. We did a community forum right here in this studio a couple of years ago in November of 2017. Since then, have the numbers changed?
Well, we're in the process of refreshing our research, so the new report will come out in 2020. What we've seen is some fluctuation in the numbers, but for the most part, they've held steady. We're right around 50% of the households being below the ALICE threshold, which is interesting because you see unemployment dropping at an all-time low. Mm-hmm. The jobs are there. In fact, many employers are struggling to fill jobs. And we know that, and that's a good thing that jobs are out there. And some of the jobs are good jobs, $15, $17, even $20 an hour. But if that's the sole income for a family of 4, and you add up housing costs, transportation costs, childcare costs, health insurance costs, you find that the survival budget actually exceeds the income. And we're finding that more and more. So great jobs are great jobs, but they don't necessarily give families the stability that they need in order to prosper.
And we hear how great the economy is, but it does not seem to be trickling down to these Alice families.
Well, certainly there are some aspects of the economy that are really positive for families, like the number of jobs available.
Right.
But the cost of living is increasing. The rate of affordable housing in our region, it's a significant issue. Transportation is an ongoing issue. The rural nature of our region is such that we are an automobile society. Despite our efforts to have public transportation in all three counties, Clinton, Essex, and Franklin.
And childcare.
Not only the cost of childcare, which is expensive for working families, but the availability of non-traditional childcare is an ongoing challenge. A lot of the work that we have in our region is manufacturing work. In many cases, they're second shift or third shift positions that are available. They're paying well. But if you take one of those jobs, and if you don't have a spouse or a relative or a close friend to care for your children, you're going to struggle to find that non-traditional childcare. We have some great resources in the area, like the work that Jamie Basiliere and her staff do at the Childcare Coordinating Council of the North Country to explore resources and to create opportunities. But the need is there. The need remains for affordability and non-traditional childcare.
And this is where the United Way and your partner agencies come in. Are they trying to help these families out by providing what services they can and assist them in dealing with these challenges and hardships?
Absolutely, and we have a network of partner agencies like the Child Care Council and others who are working to provide some excellent resources for Alice families across the region. The other piece of that, which is especially important, is we're also working with employers, businesses and employers, to raise their awareness about the issues and the challenges their employees are facing, and to create programs within their business that are empathetic to what people are facing. And we've seen some great examples of this. Mold Right Plastics, for example, has created some transportation resources, and they're actually transporting people from Franklin County to their plant in Plattsburgh and back, because they understand that transportation is a barrier. It's been very successful.
More traditional partners, food shelves, food pantries, and such, are they maxed? Are they seeing
They're maxed.
this? Are they feeling the effect of this?
Yeah.
And are they able to respond and help?
You know, it's amazing in 2019, almost 2020, that we still have a significant food insecurity issue in this region. The food shelves are overwhelmed. We're finding that more and more people need that sort of support.
And joining us now is Jamie Basiliere, who is the Executive Director at the Childcare Coordinating Council of the North Country. Welcome. It's so good to see you. You have family resource centers in all three counties,
Yes.
in Clinton, Essex, and Franklin. How many families are you assisting in the three counties?
We serve about 1,000 families a year.
Are many of these families Alice families?
They
do they
are.
fall into the Alice
They
threshold?
do. They do. These are young families, and they're raising young children. They're struggling. Yes.
And is childcare one of the biggest problems? for them?
Childcare is a huge challenge in this region, and the childcare tuition rates are already quite high. About $7,000 to $8,000 a year for infant care, $6,000 to $7,000 a year for preschool childcare. So if you have one of each, you've got $15,000 in childcare tuition costs right off the top.
Which explains the financial struggles that
Absolutely.
many of the families
Absolutely.
would immediately face.
And if you're just above the threshold for a county subsidy, you're on your own. You're on your own to pay for childcare.
You're teaming up with the United Way next weekend on Saturday, October 19th from 10 to noon
Yes.
to host what you're calling a community cafe. You're inviting many of the families that you assist to join you and talk about the challenges that they're facing, especially the financial challenges.
So we're inviting families, Alice families who are working hard and struggling to make ends meet to raise their children. And we are also inviting lawmakers, policymakers, community leaders to come together for a dialogue, for a discussion. And our hope is that we learn each other's point of view, that we walk in each other's shoes, that lawmakers and community leaders and families who participate learn each other's perspective. And maybe we can then build some policy around that in a perfect world.
Is that the idea, John, that by hearing from these families, the lawmakers, policymakers, agencies like yours may be better prepared to help them deal with it?
Absolutely. From that, we hope that there will be more discussions, more interaction as a result of this awareness. And it's listening, it's understanding, it's empathizing.
Families that would like to come and attend, they need to register. What's the easiest way for them to get in touch and let you know they'd like to attend?
The easiest way is to just give our organization a ring on the telephone at 561-4999. We do need registration because we have a limited size for our room, and we're also offering the Children's Cafe. So families can bring their children and we will take care of them, and they will have some activities and some art expression while the parents are upstairs.
Jamie Basiliere, thank you very much for taking the time. John
You're
Bernardi,
welcome.
as always, it's a pleasure to have you as well.
Thank you, Tom.
We
It was
appreciate
great
it.
to be here.